being in his shoes, how do you think he felt? He just got a message that the most powerful empire says, we're coming for your capital city. We're coming for you. Well, it's hard to put this into words because we don't live in that time. We're not used to having a city wall guarding us. We're not used to people walking in lines, standing right in front of the gate. So I'm going to give a little warning. We are going to watch a little scene from Lord of the Rings. It's a little scary. There's no violence, but it is a little frightening. I'll put that. What's the word in there? Yeah, I'll put an exclaimer out there. Thank you. See, that's why you're the big man. That's why you're up there. But I'm going to show you a clip, and I want you to just get the feeling because I can't describe it to you. You need to see what he was. This is just step one of what Hezekiah was afraid could happen to his city, to Jerusalem. Wayne, if you could please play that clip, I would very much appreciate it.
We are proud to fight alongside men once more.
I want you to get that feeling, because this is what Hezekiah had to deal with. That an invasion like that could come, where they're going to come at the wall, and I love in the cinematography, you see one battle line right here, and you see the wall, because that's all that's separating them. And once that wall falls down, you saw the kids, the children, everything is gone. That army will come in. That army will succeed. So not only does he have to worry about this battle, he knows this army has already taken out cities with walls on it. So they're going to succeed. They're going to come in. They're going to take the children. the women, whatever they want. There's no Geneva Convention stopping them from doing what they want. And not only this, he has to worry about his life. Because once they take over the city, well, the king who decided to rebel against them and not move out of the way, they're coming after him. And not in the prettiest of ways, because the Assyrian army had probably the worst style of torturing and killing someone. And to try to put it politely, they would get a spear or a pole, and they would put it through the buttocks area and shove it all the way through your mouth. And they would tow you around. This is what they would do to the king. This is Hezekiah, who's like, well, if I just surrender or I just fly, just run away, I don't have to deal with it. Not my problem. But he stands there and he says, I'm going to trust God. The king who brought up new ideas, who said, we're going to follow our old ways. We're going to get back to our Jewish heritage. We're going to go back to that. It wasn't just an idea to him. And this is when we finally get to see that. That serving this God, to have these ideas about serving this one and only God, isn't only about what it can do for me. Because we can have it two ways. Do I want God to serve me, or do I want to serve God? Now, I bring this up because in college, I had a lot of kids where God was an idea. I can make this idea work. God came down, God had wrath on all of us, God sent His Son so that we have a way to get to God. That's how I work, you know. I work God into my system. I'll make God work in my line of life thinking. So that way, God's really working for me. God's doing what I want Him to do. Like we could have said at this point, Hezekiah is using God to unify his nation, to make it stronger. But at this point, we get to see, we dissect right here. He doesn't turn around and say, I'm making God serve me. He turns around and says, I'm serving Him. And I'm giving this situation over to Him. This rough time I'm going through, where they're threatening everything I have, I'm giving it up to Him. Now, one fact I've learned about life, that stuff happens. Bad stuff will happen. You can't do anything about it. But are you going to turn around and say, God, I trust you, or not? Because I found out when you get into a difficult situation, that's about the only thing you can do sometimes. Did you say, am I going to take control of this? No, I can't. Hezekiah, he says, am I going to trust God with this, or am I not? And I give that to you guys. Are we going to trust God through these difficult times? Because Hezekiah, we look at the end result. Now, if I were him, I would have preferred like that king's head on a platter in my city. Like, hey, don't ever talk smack about my God ever again. But that's not how God handled it. God sent an angel to take them out, and then later on, when he was in his own city, his sons took him out. Hezekiah didn't get what he wanted, what he specifically wanted, but God took care of it. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves that. Sometimes we want this perfect vision plan, but God's got another one. And let me tell you, God knows his stuff. Believe that or not, he really does know what's going on. And after this whole fiasco, you know what happened to Hezekiah? Every nation that was around respected him and said, don't mess with that nation right there. They had a powerhouse come in. They talked smack about they were talking all this garbage about their God, saying how he couldn't deliver them. And they didn't have to raise a sword. Because that God's backing him so much. He had a chance to run and hide. He could have fight or flight, but instead he didn't choose those two. He said, I'm going to trust God with this. And I ask you as a congregation, what are we going to do when those times come? What are we going to do when that depressing time comes in our lives? Because like Hezekiah, we're going to hit a moment like that, where we feel like everything's going to cave in around us. Some of us might get to that point where the enemies are at the gates, ready to tear down the wall. Now we know in the movie they tear down the wall, but they wait it out, and someone comes to help them. Are we going to trust God? And are we going to serve Him? Because you look here, there was instances where he could turn around and say, I don't serve God, I serve me, or I serve this, or I serve that. They turned around and said, I serve the one true God. No matter what. That's my stance. And when we take that stance, God is right there and never forsakes. Because you look